Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on October, I believe, 14th, but that gives you an idea where things are. Hate when I do that. Nope, today is October 13th, 2024. Now, I've returned to this world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. And of course, we have a problem here. There we are. Have my feed running in the background. Anyway, with that in mind, I build myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use in my own day-to-day life. And the philosophies of life I talk about are the same philosophies that I personally guide virtually every movement I make by. I know these tools will work for you because they continue to work for me and have literally worked for thousands of other people, over the years with varying degrees of success, depending on their own personal efforts. Now, in the background, we do have Storm taking care of the technological side of things, which is a good thing. You don't want me doing that. Okay. And we have, let's see what we got. Just change the eyeballs so I can see. Okay. Now, with this in mind, today we are going to look at literally how real is the threat of invasion from inner Earth. Joe Stewart, you are in with the gold. How you doing? Glad you could join us. I know things are always kind of on the hectic side over your end of the world. So hopefully things stay reasonably functional at this point. But I will tell you, the way that we're looking at the world, the way that things are coming about, people talk about how is the world going to end. I got a better question for you, in my eyes. How is this world going to live? Not how are you going to die, but what are you going to do to make this world a better one? Okay, so you can actually look forward to getting up in the morning. Now, in all fairness, I spent a lot of my life trying to figure out how to fit in. Well, I finally pieced it together. If I desire to fit in on this world, number one, I got to start spewing all the hate rhetoric that I can get. Start talking to people about how can we break this society apart. Okay. Susan Ahern, you are in with the silver. And that was not fun. And Ellie Moon, thank you so much for joining us. The reality is I rely a lot on Ellie Moon to keep an eye on my health because my stress level gets absolutely stupid. Oh, what have we got here? Oh, there we go. What have we got here? Apparently, we're going to pass on some bad news here. Some of you people will know this gentleman. I, sad to say, actually don't. But apparently, and I'll just read what LA has put here. With great sorrow, we need to announce World Bigfoot Central 5 Hours Eagles is with great sadness that I am sorry to inform everyone that former guest on my show, Bigfoot researcher and show host of North Carolina Cryptids and Paranormal Project, Tom Cardos, died last night in a motorcycle accident. Tom was a kind and wonderful human being and will be greatly missed by his friends. On a personal note, I'd like to say my sincere condolences to those left behind. It's really unfortunate, but as we all know, unfortunately, the really sad part is so many people, when they pass away, people remember them. The real key factor here is how many people are you remembering that haven't passed away? absolutely critical that we start looking at how we are going to live. Okay. How are we going to make the most of our time in this world? Because every one of us, sooner or later, is going to die. Now, where did I put it? The reality of it is, I could get really badly sidetracked here, but the reason I'm tangling with this whole idea of how real is the threat of an invasion from inner Earth or from Hollow Earth, call it what you will. Okay. People talk about mankind being invaded, being taken over, being bred out of existence, all these wonderful, depressing outlooks. And I could go on and list a bunch more, but I don't see the point. How about if we look, how are we as a species, as co-denizens of the same planet, going to start to live? Going to start celebrating life instead of mourning death? I'm sort of a mixed opinion. Everybody dies. I've just had a lot more runs at it. I'm looking at it going, I really don't fear death. But this issue of struggling moment by moment and day by day really is getting old. Now, I wonder if, let's open that up, and let's see if we can find the other one. Don't know what that is. Oh, that's what that is. Well, don't need that. I'm just taking a look and seeing if I've got one other file here. What have we got? Well, that's interesting. Type that in and come. Oh, that's where we are. There. Well, that's an interesting setup, so we're going to ignore that. Now, when we take a look at this, there we are. When we take a look at this, okay, now most of you believe in something that you call either inner Earth or hollow Earth. There are a number of different names for it. But with so many people talking about the invasion, about mankind being swamped by these races, let us understand something. As we discussed a couple of days ago, if off-worlders do it, nobody's going to know until it's over. If the ancient races do it, I will tell you this. Now, some of you are going to look at me and go, oh, you've been playing way too much Dungeons and Dragons, and this is all imaginary fear-mongering, the whole 9 yards. Okay, you can call it what you will. Oh, what do we got here? Oh, Nathan, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Oh, so LA, correct me if I'm wrong, because I really don't mind spending time on this. This gentleman that just passed away, that is who I knew as World Bigfoot. Is that what I'm understanding here? What have we got? Now, the neat part about this, with World, the reality of it is, if this is who I think it is, okay, anytime that we have somebody from this field, especially somebody that is well liked, let's not bother with the world renowned. Let's just bother with was he liked as an individual. Okay, it does have a tendency of bringing the idea of how is life being lived. Are we actually making the most of it? Now, when we take a look at the way this world is right now, let's take a look at the reality of of what is known as inner Earth. Any one of the dominant races is going to be a problem. Now get this. The Kaldor, who you call dwarves, do still live underground. What you've heard about them is very real. Thank you so much for that, LA. It's still, the fact is, Tom, what the heck was his last name? Tom Cardos. From what I gather, especially given that he was on World Bigfoot Show, we can safely say that he was a good contributor. Like, he was one of these well accepted contributors to the field. And, especially quality contributors are difficult to come by. Okay. And this is, I like to think that I'm a reasonably quality, contributor. Do I see myself as an expert? Not a prayer. I don't know enough to be classified as an expert. Am I a specialist? Certainly. The thing about it is, if we take a look at inner Earth, many of what you consider mythological beings, mythological individuals, the characters from history, from folklore, these are the people that in inner Earth make their home. Okay, and if we take a look at just the Kaldor, the ones that you know as dwarves, some come to the surface on occasion. Okay, but I will tell you, if they ever decide to come to the Earth surface to get en masse, number one, they don't outnumber humans. Let's just be clear. But given that a handful of them could wipe out a city, well, why talk about a handful? You take, let's say, 100 dwarves. They could, 100 of the Kaldor could, if it was in their mind, they could drop the entirety of Toronto, Canada, and Toronto, Ontario, Canada, or New York, New York. They could drop the entirety of it underground. Okay, by just taking the bottom out. Okay, now this is one of those things that you look at going, why would they do that? That's the whole catch. They wouldn't. They don't want that many people, much less that many corpses in their area. What we are looking at here is a mass of people that are very capable, living in the area, in the environment they do. They have some pretty horrendous territory they've got to deal with. Okay, so if you're going to start worrying about an invasion, it might be an idea to start looking at where the real problems are. Okay, take a look at your neighbor. Now, do not get me wrong. I do not feel neighbors are a problem. Okay, I feel that people are looking for somebody to blame their own life on. Okay, you want to start looking at real problems, talk to your neighbors, get to know them, and watch the problems collapse. Okay, if we keep isolating ourselves, if we keep, creating barriers and divisions in amongst our own peoples, we are going to have a problem that you're not going to like the looks of. One of the things we have to realize is when we look at the Kaldor, they are a very unified race. Okay, very unified species. Yes, they've got some bizarre ideas as to what unified is, but you can bet your bottom dollar they will do what they can to keep things running. And if people keep destroying the planet, they will undoubtedly retaliate. But it's up to you guys whether you want to curb that yourself. You know, we take a look at creatures that have been talked about for centuries. Things like your centaurs, half man, half horse. Okay, when you look at that, these are individuals that are very real. Okay, the Minotaur, as in the guy that looks like a man with a bull with the head of a bull. Again, very real, and yes, very nasty. You gotta remember, we take a couple of these guys, bring them to the surface. Number one, most humans are going to panic and run away. Even people that are used to saying, "Hey, I've got a gun. I'm going to be able to stand my ground on this." I'll tell you, the number of people that find out that isn't quite the way it works is amazing. Joe's looking at this going, I'm seeing more unidentified flying objects in the sky during the daytime. A lot now. A lot more now. Nice little part about it is now that you've seen them there, Joe, I'll tell you, you are going to spot them a lot more readily. When I'm looking at the inner Earth, the reality is they went down there millennia ago in order to survive. Okay, kind of worked out that way. Now, mythology has it that dwarves and elves do not get along. I'm here to tell you that is not entirely the case. There are a lot of things taking place that are changing now. One of the biggest things I found is people have to start, or at least it would be wise for people to start reaching out to the neighbors, people that look a little different. Talk to them. Okay, this is how we bring things back into balance. Do not buy into this concept that, hey, those people come from a different country. That makes them bad people. It doesn't make them bad people. But understand something. If you constantly tell a group of people and you spread the propaganda that one group of people, one skin color, one ideology, one diet, whatever, what you're looking at is you yourself are already fanning the flames of fear. Okay, I mean it's just absolutely terrible the way some things are going, but it is something we can pull into balance. Now, when we look at the ancient races in question, the elephant, and let me pull that up because I opened it just recently. There. We have amongst the elephant species. Okay, now understand, this is what I've learned to call them. This does not necessarily mean that this is what everybody else calls them. Okay, but the elephant is the species. Then you've got the Kambi, who are way down in the bowels of the earth. Seldom do they ever come to the surface. Okay, you have the Kankari, which live up in the mountains, in the high altitudes, amongst snow and permanent fall conditions. Okay, the Kankari are also the ones that spend most of their time talking to the animals. Okay, at varying levels. Now, Tasatano are literally the original elephant race. Golden skinned. Okay, these are not people that look like they've got just kind of olive toned skin or a little darker than normal. There is a definitive hue to it. Okay, now if we go down further, we've got the Hadar. Now the Hadar, and I was mentioning this the other day, these are the elephants that move back into the water. It's the Hadar that live in the bottom of the Marianas Trench. And the only reason I've been told there's no problem setting is letting people know is because the Hadar are very capable of protecting themselves. Okay, now you will find the Hadar first and foremost they are a water breathing race. Okay, you'll find that amongst the Hadar you also have the Wayland. Okay, Wayland and Hadar, they are not the same people, but they do get along reasonably well for the most part. Now, when we look at the elephant on the plains, we are looking at Jerumi. Okay, these guys, and bear in mind, all of these different peoples are being added to Meet the Elephant. Okay, which is a book dedicated strictly to the elephant race, to the elephant species. Okay, and then we've already taught, that's kind of the Kabari live up in the far north, in amongst the glaciers. Okay, and we have the Traylock, who are a woodland race. Now here's the thing: all of these guys used to live on the surface. Centuries back, they moved underground. Okay, at the behest of the Caldor. Okay, so what we're looking at is the races that are very well adapted to the underground and have no problem dealing with it. But where we run into a problem is many humans will look at them and go, oh, that's an elf. Either they go, that's an elf, and we're going to worship it. We're going to acknowledge how much more advanced they are. You got that side, and then you've got the people that go, oh, it's an elephant. And they'll put their fingers up and stay back, foul demon. Okay, reality check, guys. Elephant are not demon. Or, for that matter, they're not demon. Now, again, guys, if you have questions, absolutely come right out and ask. Okay, because that's what we're aiming to do, is bring a little bit of education back in where you can realize these people are not that different from you. One of the most difficult things I find is when we start looking at the races in Inner Earth, we start realizing that people are creating fear almost for the sake of creating fear. Now, I will warn you, the elephant do not have a lot of technological advancement. However, as was pointed out, and I think it might have been Asimov, could have been, love that. I just pulled a complete blank. There's a number of people that talk about these ancient races going, they're here to wipe us out. Rest assured, what would be nice if I could keep my brain straight. Slide down here. There we are. Were the combi to come to the surface with the intent of wiping people out, rest assured there's a lot of ways you can do it. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm thinking talking about how we can hurt a lot of people does not seem that, if you will, positive on my part. Okay, so what we're looking at is a world where we can actually make a difference, but it's going to require all of our effort. Now, I told people years ago, I was working on a book that will encompass the races I've dealt with. As it turns out, I am now starting to work on smaller books to cover one race at a time. Okay, this is where the elephant race, the elephant species, is going to be documented here on the stream, on Positive Perspectives, and via email in my own home. Okay, now understand, the elephant do not require spacecraft. They can get to and from the different planets all on their own. Don't mind me. Now, when we look at the inner Earth, okay, picture, if you will, a race that can literally, by the time they're in their mid-teens, they can literally cast fire from their hands without thinking about it. Okay, aside from, gee, I'd like to send a firebolt over there. And it happens. This is what I call true magic, because they rely on changes in people and the fact that people on the whole don't seem to care too much. Now, you'll notice I said don't seem. I am wondering why I've got that problem. Oh, wow, that was interesting. I just found a mistake here. Oh. Okay, we can take that out of the equation altogether. Just had to make an adjustment to one of the entries I was working on. Rachel, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Now, what do we got here? I gotta go back up. We have, okay, Joe came in with the gold, Susan Ahern came in with the silver. Then we scroll down a bit. That was Joe Stewart, by the way. And I could have saw, what do we got? Joe, Susan Ahern. Then we scroll down a bit. And we have, oh, there we go. Okay, Nathan came in with the bronze. And as we carry on down past him, by the way, Nathan, thanks so much for showing up. Okay. Yeah, we've got a lot of back and forth going on. This is a good thing. Susan Ahern is asking, do ancient civilizations experience their own form of racism? Absolutely. It's unfortunate, but very much the case. You know, you have the same kinds of problems. Okay, and that would be, for instance, if we're taking a look at a race that deals in magic, ones that deal in negative magic, okay, or in modifying the path of nature, those ones can be a lot more problematic than the ones genuinely trying to help. Okay, now what we've got to do is start propagating the idea that these people, yes, they're from a different culture, but no, that does not mean they are evil. Okay, if that makes any sense. And one of the things I did find out is too many people take a look at the fact that somebody looks a little different and goes, oh, that makes them an evil person. And I'm telling you, that is not the way this works. Okay, what we have to look at is where are the similarities that we can make things actually run in a smooth fashion. Figured I'd do that. Now we can absolutely talk about all the things that are wrong with this world and compare them and say, hey, these guys have these neat little problems and these neat little situations. Not the least of which is they do not, contrary to popular belief, the different races of Elfin do not turn around and isolate a community. That is something white man does. Do have to figure out what I did wrong. But what we are looking at here is we've got a golden opportunity to reach out to these people and start making a positive contribution. Understand, the people that are avoiding our show are not bad people. They may just not know we exist. Okay, one of the things we have to realize here is the more we focus on the good side of what people are capable of, the better off we're going to be. Now, yeah, I realize as it stands right now, I realize we have an interesting problem because so many people are looking at the different races and going, okay, you tell me there's minotaurs, as in bullheaded men. Well, I'm sure every one of you knows at least one bullheaded man, and probably a few bullheaded women. Okay, so what we're looking at is an entire civilization of what humans would call mythological entities. Okay, and no, the reality is that the people that, and I'm trying to remember who it is everybody keeps talking and keeps blaming. We are not talking about all of these races being abducted and taken into inner Earth in search of gold. Now let me explain something. Gold is, I think, around number 18. It is a very useful metal. But the reality is, if it is not insulated, okay, it can short out in one heck of a hurry. This is why we're talking about getting this all organized. And no, for those of you that are that way inclined, I am not referring to looking for these people because of the fact they're different color, or maybe they've got different rituals. Okay, I'm bringing this child back because it's a method that works. One of the things we have to realize as far as that goes is where do we go from here? So I go up here, call that up. Okay, I have, what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 of the elfin races. Okay, each specializing in their own thing. Now, understand these guys are very capable in hand-to-hand conflict or in early everyday run-ins. Okay, this is why we have to really take a look at how we're presenting ourselves to others. Okay, if we keep dealing with the warmongering, I personally see firsthand. You keep going down that road, guess what it ends in? The odd reality of it is this. Whether you believe in spirit or don't, okay, it is likely wise to give way to the possibility, at the very least, that it is alien. Okay, that's the one thing we gotta look at. As Spock said in 63, 64, Nope, my apologies. 67, 68. When you remove all probable complications, whatever is left, regardless of how improbable it may be, that's the answer you're looking for. Now, the Combi absolutely have spent the majority of their life underground. Therefore, they have built specially designed glasses, okay, sunglasses, if you will, to protect them from the intense light. Now, I would love to say they figured it out all on their own. In all fairness, they dropped it on humans' laps, and humans turned around and went, here's what we're missing. And net result, they came up with an answer. But what we have to do is find a way to help the common people realize that. When you start looking at some of the creatures, some of the brothers and sisters that are down there, and you start realizing what they look like, okay, you all of a sudden gain a whole new respect for somebody being corporally punished. In other words, beaten with no functional possibility of being crippled or of being being taken into a bad situation. The thing we got to realize is the elfin race is very capable of what I call true magic. Okay, difference between true magic and the issue of what we have. Looking for a word. Difference between true magic and 0-point energy is true magic requires a certain vocal component. When you're looking at vocal complications, again, people are limited in their experience. So what we have to realize is we are going to be changing this world for the better. But it's going to take work. It's going to take work on your end. Now, I'm just looking down here. The number of people that I'm looking at that are talking about how the world's going to end. How about if we focus on how are we going to get the peoples on this planet to live together and continue to live? Something I should point out. When you reduce the stress in your life, the odds of diabetes, especially type 2, of it actually originating here, is one of these things we've got to help re-educate people on. That's where the biggest challenge comes in. Because we get people that come on and go, I know what's going on, here's the problem. And nobody ever calls them back. Okay, if that makes any sense. Don't mind me, we're just looking for this. Now, when we take a look at the way the world is, okay, when we take a look at the races underground, I've already talked about what the Caldor could do. They could simply drop the city out from underneath you. Okay, now it will not drop every city, but it will undoubtedly fracture the superstructure of. I hate that. They will certainly destroy the superstructure of the surface world. Okay, I'm watching this and so many people, oh, look at that. I think we're going to deal with that right now. As it turns out, it is actually my nephew's. Oh, already did that. It's actually my nephew's birthday today. So I just sent off a happy birthday to him. See, when we look at the ancient races, number one, they used to be all over the surface. Now, take the Minotaur. Okay, and yes, somewhere in my stuff, I do actually have the name of them. I'm just wondering if I've got it handy. I don't think so, but we're going to take a peek. Races of the Worlds. We are looking for volume 2. Nope. Of course not. I really should have looked these up. And here's the thing. These races were up here before mankind was even a thought. Okay? And that's where we run into the real big problem. Okay, it ultimately boils down to this. With a world that is in so much turmoil, where fear is being taught above all else almost, is it any wonder we have a problem? I am not impressed with the way my glasses are working. And the sad part is I just actually had a meal 5 minutes before I came online. When we look at these races, if they were coming to the surface, number one, they've already harnessed things like lightning and the wind. They've already contained this stuff inside the sticks and if you will, sticks that are lying around, tree branches, things that are of a natural nature. This has already been called in to the people's attention. But what we're having trouble with is getting people to realize that just because they're different does not mean that they are a problem. That's where we have to look at it. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but what I do know is it is one of these things that can be put to work in a positive fashion. Now, okay, now we are looking for of course I'm not going to find that. Every time I try and find something on the net, I run into a snag. But here's the thing. When we are I can see this is going to go well. Anyway, when we are talking about the races in inner Earth or hollow Earth, we got to realize they don't get away from each other, which means they've had to come up with some understanding, some negotiation to make sure that they have mutually beneficial representation. That's just the reality behind it. And unfortunately, so many people are completely missing the boat on that one. Let me ask you this. Who out there thinks that the color of an elephant's skin will tell you whether they are good, bad, or good, bad, or indifferent people? Okay, but when you look at these races, they look at the surface dwelling and go, why are we leaving them up there? Okay, well, the reason they leave us up here is because technologically speaking, mankind is head and shoulders above the elephant race and above virtually every race down there. So the reason they leave us in power is because of the fact if humans are in a position of what they consider power, they get deluded into believing that they are, that they are unstoppable, which is not the case. And yes, in case you're wondering why I stood up, the reality is I'm not actually tired, but my eyes are doing really stupid things, and by my moving around a little, I'm a lot better off. And besides that, I don't do a face plant. Now, when we look at it, understand something very important. The ancient races, okay, and yes, I am referring to some Molochs, the Laborians, the Alphid, the Kaldor, okay, these are all part and parcel. Okay, these are all groups of people working towards making inner Earth a paradise. But don't kid yourself. There are some branches down there in that network that could easily leave somebody with a try English, could easily leave somebody dead in the street with nobody seeing them. Because understand, when we take a look at the Cambi, these are guys trained to live in the shadows. Okay, they do not turn around and go, "Oh, we're better than you are." What they do is they say, "We figured this out. It might be an idea to pay attention." Let's call that up there. Now when we take a look at the Kankari, they are a mountain elf. They are also very tightly linked and interwoven by their culture into between the light and the dark side of things. We are talking about people that they put the planet first, their people second, then food sources, and then finally, guess what, guys? Humans are at the bottom of the list. Not because they're not valuable, but because humans on the whole do not know how to think straight. As far as that overall picture goes. But are we talking about a race that could that would be a problem? Certainly. Think what happens if the Kaldor decide, okay, we desire to make a mess. So we're going to make a point and we're going to drop Rocky Mountain House into a gully. That's all it would take them doing is chanting about it. But it doesn't have to be done that way. I prefer the idea of when you go to put somebody in the ground, absolutely pick up a little bit of the dirt and let it flow free. Okay, this is the way to bring peace back to this planet. To quit finding new and exciting ways to isolate yourselves. Because I'm telling you, the majority of you are in all likelihood human. Now, when we take a look at the Kambi, they focus on being silent. Okay. The Kankari, they are the ones that focus on stonework and animation. Okay. So you can bet your bottom dollar if there is an artisan from one of these planets that we're aware of, you can bet there would be a swarm of the ancient races coming up to collect it. Any idea why they would do that? What would be the purpose of the off-worlders if they're just learning how to do it all on their own? Why would they stoop back to, if you will, a negative footprint? Okay, we can also, by the way, safely say that when we're looking at any of the cryptids, okay, none of them, to the best of my knowledge, are actually writing, are actually trying to correct that. The fact is, the good people of Ernath, of this planet, okay, are doing everything they can think of how to do in order to bring Joy back to the house. Just remember, if Joy doesn't want to go to the house, let her go. Just a thought. Okay, the thing we have to realize here is this person has only been in town for a couple of months. To top that off, he's already up to count number 2. So we are not talking about something that is just a flight of fancy. Okay. So, well, this is not actually boding well. The reality of it is this. When we take a look at the underground races, the ones from Inner Earth, from Hollow Earth, the ones that simply come up and then hide in the meadows or in an already existing tunnel. Okay, the numbers of people that are doing that could make this extremely difficult to work with. What we got to remember is the moment somebody starts talking about their idea that the world is going to come to an end at the hand of XYZ race, I'm telling you, now I may be wrong. Okay, absolutely I might be wrong. Lord knows I question that all the time myself anyway. Okay, what I'm looking at is a world where if we start accepting each other first, we will find it easier to accept the other races. Okay? I mean, think about it. If you like horses and you like people, the odds are that you're going to get along with one of them, and I do not have an actual name for them. I don't think. Not that one. I have to try and figure out. Okay, I'm just not going to do that. The ancient races understand we are talking about a whole pile of mythological individuals, as in felines that can cast magic. Okay, males that can walk through walls, females who just don't have any eyes and still see phenomenally well. What I'm looking at is this. We have countless races already living amongst us. Countless. And that is where we have to start. Okay, is by telling people these are the things that we're watching happen, not by sugarcoating it. Everybody, like, I get asked by a lot of people, well, aren't you worried about the elephant invading? I'm looking at them going, not a prayer. There's just not any functional purpose to worrying about. Where are we? I'm actually looking for that neat little thing. Okay. Enough going back and forth through books. One thing about the ancient races in Inner Earth, okay, they already know how to get to the surface. They have already sealed virtually every access to Inner Earth, to Hollow Earth, to ensure that they have a stable place to go. That's where it becomes problematic. Joe. Well, yeah. Joe goes there, and there are life on other planets, no doubt about that. Then he carries on and says, are the alien species capable of bringing the dead back to life? Well, funny part is, from a human standpoint, it would likely look that way. But there comes a point where a dead is a dead. Okay? But they have been known to bring people back to life after a prolonged period of time. Thing is, they won't bring them back and just drop them right into the meat grinder. Okay, but yeah, many races can bring people back from what humans call dead because they've got technology that will actually register the heartbeat way before the body gives out. This is where it gets to be complicated. Now, the sad part there, Joe, is these same people also have the capacity to bring an end to life. Okay, they could absolutely do it, but enough, you know, Esau and Takon, as well as Takulu, okay, all related Kaborans, but they've already stated if civilization starts to buckle, they will want to fly out of here and come back and try and stabilize it afterwards. If that makes any sense. The thing that we really have to realize about life on this planet is it is not a unique similarity. It is something that evolved a long time ago. You know, and one of the biggest things we're looking at this point is where do we go from here? What can we do to really make this world a better place? You know, a better place for virtually everyone. Now, I've talked to a lot of these people, and you can call me insane if you'd like. I've been called worse. What we have to realize is that when you're dealing with these people, they have their own outlook on life as well. And it may not be as cut and dried as yours is. You know, Fahrenheit odds, it's not. You know, the neat part about it is inner Earth are a far more unified society than the surface dwellers are. But that's because they figured out what their strengths and weaknesses were. As in, we know the Kaldar are very definitively architectural geniuses. Okay, the Elfid have an artistic and creative approach that is absolutely phenomenal. Okay, what we're looking at is an opportunity because, yes, some of you have mentioned you think some of the ancient races are resurfacing. I'm here to tell you they are. But it's going to build something along the lines of, okay, let's start with getting power lines down. Now remember, a lot of your power, a lot of your sewer is underground. Okay, if the Kaldar, for instance, decided they were going to reclaim the surface, they could easily knock out the sewage treatment plants. You know, and yeah, disgusting smell. We used to have a septic tank. You know, when I was living back on the island. But what we got to remember is all of these races do interact. And since the surface world has not cracked the surface, okay, we can safely say they're not in dire straits at this point. You know, the other thing we have to look at, I'm going to go back to Joe's question here. When you start talking about bringing the dead back to life, we got to remember there is a certain amount of organization that goes into that whole transition. Okay, and this is why, if you're seeing a medium, you're getting help to access the Akashic records, absolutely ask the tree to help you make sure you pick the first one right. Okay, kind of a necessary thing in today's world. So what we're looking at is a situation where the world is not seeing the reality. Okay, and yeah, you can argue that if you'd like, but let me ask you this: how many? Just if you can give me a show of hands, that'd be great. Okay, how many people are we looking at? We've got 8 billion in the way of human that are recognized as human. You've got another 7 billion organizing the organizing the rainfall, organizing how plants are tended. And yes, when you're looking at the ancient races, many of them take care of the roots. Okay, they can see where the toxin's coming out. Well, that's an interesting noise. I love it when I hear noise that just doesn't add up. But when we are dealing with the ancient races, understand if you're dealing with the Kami are known to kill an entire city just because. That's the one thing we have to realize. Now, we also have, when you're looking at, and I've got to look up the name because I don't have it off the top of my head, but we'll settle for Minotaur for the moment. With them in mind, okay, we have an interesting situation and a golden opportunity to build a lattice work, essentially to help the plants on the surface grow. All we got to do is start listening to them. Okay, now some of you have very green thumbs, as the saying goes. You guys can already care for the plants. Myself, I simply know how to talk to them. And just before somebody jumps on that, yes, plants do get depressed. Prime example is occurring right now. Okay, and what I mean by that is so many people are completely missing the organization of the different churches, and then looking at it going, well, we've got to do something like that, but in order to get a break, we've got to come up with an Oriental design. Now, the sad part, when we're looking at the races roaming the earth, they have a number of agendas. Okay, not the least of which is they look at it going, well, if we abduct one of their I'll draw a blank on that one. They look at it going, okay, we're not going to target an individual. We will target at the very least a semi organized semi organized group of people that are bound and determined to set the record straight. This is where it becomes complicated. And now what I'm looking at is this, because I keep hearing people going, well, this race is going to come to the surface. We found we found they found their smelter, found their supply lines. They're getting ready for war. Understand, humans are the ones that propagate most of the race wars. Sometimes it happens with the others, but very rarely. Oh, I just about missed that. And again, guys, okay, when you've got a question, this is why I miss them. Put your questions in all caps, please. It helps me spot them so much easier. Now, Susan, Susan Ahern has asked, do ancient civilizations experience their own form of racism? Absolutely. Funny part is, what they consider racism and what humans consider racism are almost identical. Okay, they have learned that you don't when you're trying to contain this kind of thing, do not over tighten things. Do not over restrict them. When we're dealing with the ancient races, if you try and isolate them and point the finger at them and go, you're the cause, you can almost bet your bottom dollar they're going to turn around and go and find help, which may not happen right away in case you hadn't noticed. I would love to know What we got here? I would love to know why my eyesight has gone off kilter, but that seems to be a side effect of stress. Now, one thing we can remember, or at least I would advise you, on the whole, off-worlders will not strike first until a war has been declared. Like, they do get people getting edgy about them regularly. But here's the kicker. Okay, they get edgy about it, but they won't do anything to act on until they get concrete proof. Humans have a bad habit of acting on partial information or worse, misinformation all the time. You know, one of the neat parts of all of this is that the reality of life is that we can intermingle and get along. Okay, this doesn't mean you can necessarily go and crawl into bed with them. Although I will tell you, it's been done with a whole lot less subtlety than what I've got. Okay, because we've got a society that is so built up on fearing that which is different. We don't know how to cope anymore. Now, what do I got here? There we are. Neat part about it is I'm now starting to draw together the different figures for the different races. So I can start adding color and get back on track with that sort of thing. Now, I know that I can be a royal pain in the neck on occasion. By the way, this is just straight salt. Before somebody comes to a conclusion, I'm into something odd. Now, I'm going to have to do this. Wasn't planning on it, but I'm going to have to take half a break out here and get some more water.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
You know, I'm looking at things right now, and I keep looking at it, going, okay, there is so much information coming out. You know, so many claims that we are in serious trouble from outside. We have to start looking at where the threats are coming from on the surface. And I'm not talking about the ones that are blatantly obvious. Okay. You know, I'm referring to the ones that people are overlooking. The problem that we're having here, why so many people are looking to the off-worlders, to the ancient races, is it keeps the problem at arm's length. Or at least this is what it seems to be to me. Okay, if you keep the problem at arm's length, it's not quite as scary. Problem is, the majority of the complications on Earth, the majority of the threats for war, are generated on the surface. Okay, and this is why I say, when you see something posted of a negative nature, absolutely focus on, you watch it if you will, okay, and watch at least two things of a positive nature. Okay, when we look at what's going on in the inner earth, in hollow earth, what you'll find is that they focus more on how their civilization can be bolstered. War is a secondary focus. It is not the go-to to solve the problem. Okay, but understand, if they desire to come to the surface and create a real problem, there is no functionally stopping them. The Kaldar could literally take your cities out from under you without hesitation. Okay, now let me ask you this. What are your biggest concerns regarding the resurfacing of the ancient races? And rest assured, if you're worried about something, the odds are somebody else in the listening room, in the listening audience, is wondering the same thing. Okay. Oh, what do we got here? Wooey's gonna send you a video crafts. Send you a video of crafts I captured flying by the moon, and we'll send it after the stream. Great. Look forward to seeing it, Woo. The neat part about it is these crafts. Some of them now, depending on how clear, I may be able to identify them. I may not, because I don't have great video here. Just one little point though, Woo. Send them over the computer. Okay. People keep making this wonderful idea of, I'll send them to my cell number. I can't see them on my cell. Okay. Because quite frankly, I can't blow them up big enough. Besides that, my cell phone doesn't work that well on that department. Okay. But what I can tell you is, the more you get to know, when I talk about your neighbors, I don't mean just the humans. Okay, I got a neighbor out front here that is really upset because somebody chopped down his tree. Now, I think the tree broke by natural causes, but it's not making my neighbor any happier. One of the things we have to realize is that when we're dealing with races from the inner worlds, okay, the Elfers and the Kaldar are just simply the most well known. Okay, there are a few Anunnaki that stay behind that are down there, but rest assured, the Anunnaki come to the surface, nobody's going to be questioning where they came from. Okay, when you're dealing with a 30-foot human appearing individual, we are not dealing with small people. Okay, it literally boils down to absolutely huge individuals. But we also have to remember there are some Sarkon down there. And yes, I'm going to be going through my races and starting to put ones together so I can actually paint them and get them onto disc properly. Okay. Now, that where is? Nope, not that. Oh, I know what that is. Can I put that over there? Probably. Okay. Now, here's the neat thing. When we look at the ancient races, you gotta remember they are a lot more organized in many cases than what humans are. Because the biggest kicker to it all is that humans have this idea they know exactly what they're doing. Problem is, fear mongering does not work well. What is that? Oh, gotta deal with that. I was actually looking for something over here to make sure I get things moved in the right area. And apparently, what is that? Oh, all kinds of articles to put together here. That's always fun. When we look at the races inside, first of all, understand the ones that have dominant control over the layout there, over the segregation and what have you. I don't mean segregation as in you're not allowed to live amongst us. Of all the people down there, okay, of all the people down there, the Kaldar are the ones that opened the doors and said when the great battle really took place millennia ago, okay, the Kaldar went, open the doors, whether we usually get along or not, we have a common problem. Now, former President Ronald Reagan, if the stories are accurate, stated that what we may need is an off-world invasion to draw everybody together. How about if we start drawing everybody together now, including the people of Inner Earth? Okay, I shouldn't say don't, I should say do your best to look at them with an open mind. Not look at them as though, oh my gosh, they look different, therefore they've got to be evil. This is just one of those things we have to look at, or at least it would be wise to look at. Now, I know there are a lot of things going on in this world, but if the ancient races were to actually desire to come up and take the world and reclaim dominant control over the surface, bearing in mind they are very aware. It's not so much they're better equipped for war. Man's got better technological toys than the elephant do. Okay. Problem is the elephant have well-developed abilities that render the weapons almost unilaterally useless. Okay. And this is why, if you get a chance, let's pull that back up. And yeah, I spent a lot of time looking at the elephant. Okay. But where are we here? Okay. And bear in mind, this is going into Meet the Elephant. Okay, so this is already there. It's also being added to Races of the Worlds. Okay, the reality is there is a staggering amount of cross-correlation there. Okay, when we take a look at the different races, understand they all live in Inner Earth. Some of them have outposts on the surface. Like for instance, the Cambi, or the darker and the really deep-seated elephant that grew up so far down in the caverns that they have learned to adapt to the dark. Okay. Then if we take a look at the Kankari are physically much more dominating, much more what's the word I'm looking for? Not dominating, but they are imposing. There we go. Physically imposing than the other races. Than the other members of the elephant race. Okay. Now, they specialize in stonework and animation. With this in mind, I've already mentioned that the Kaldar can drop your city out from under you. Well, if you look at that, the Kankari won't bother. They will simply melt the stone you're using. Okay, this is why you don't worry about it. Okay, now, when we move on to the Tasatano, okay, the Tasatano have this, and number one, they are not white skinned or dark skinned, they are golden hued. Now, some of you have met a few of them. Okay, but we gotta remember, just because they look different does not make them problematic. When you look at the Hadar, these are the sea elephant. These are the ones that live at the bottom of the Marianas Trench. Okay, and yes, they live below the silt layer that's there. It's almost like somebody filled up the water and went, okay, we're about a mile up. Let's put a complete system here where try English, where the Kankari, no, not the Kankari, where the Hadar can actually live unimpeded. Humans do not have yet the technology to safely go down below the silt level in the Marianas Trench. I know they're starting to push through it, but it's still going to take some time. Now, if we go down to there, the Jerumi. Now, the Jerumi, on the whole, have tan skin. The thing you got to remember with them, very dexterous, very fleet on foot, and more than capable of combat. They prefer not to fight, but that's the way that is. Okay, now the Kabari live up in the either in the far north, the far south, or way up in the mountains. Okay, because the Kabari thrive on the dark worlds. And then we have your Traylock. Traylock are your wood elephant. And yes, the Traylock do interact with your gnomes, with your dryads, with many of the forest denizens. Okay, but all of these people have specialized in a given field. Okay, now, here's the really neat kicker. Not every elephant goes down that road. Okay, and there are a staggering number of humans that will disconnect from society in order to feel what is being done. Now, the funny part with the ancient races is if we all of a sudden were to bring up, for instance, if you bring up the Cambi, they will be on the Municore. Okay, Municore are a 30-foot carnivorous lizard. Okay, now understand, they come from the Municore, come from a world that is extremely violent. This means so are they. Okay, where humans get to deal with horses, and I want them to behave faster, to run faster. They'll smack the backside. They'll smack the wizard. They will smack. I am pulling so many blanks. Okay, the withers of the horse to get it to run faster. You smack the withers of a Municore, and I will warn you, the thing will turn around and eat you. Okay, and I've seen it done. It's a mess. Okay, now of course the Traylock, by the way, they are if you will, the elephant healers. They will favor healing the plants over the animals and certainly over people. But once they commit to dealing with something, you can bet they're going to deal with it as well as they can. Now, we shrink that down. And what do we got? One of the other things you have to realize within Earth, okay, if they desired to wipe out the planet, they would. They'd have already done it. The other thing is this, because they are already members of the Galactic Consortium, they already know Earth is not theirs. However, they have voiced a direct correlation and told the council that if mankind fails again, the Alpha are going to step up and take over. To this end, they got told, you get to wait, but we hear you. So what you'll find many of the Alpha working on is prepping things like supply stuff to go and live on the surface. Some of the Alpha are already moving on into surface dwellings where they don't, in areas where they don't have to worry about what they look like. Okay, hopefully this is making sense. But do we have to worry about it? I don't see the point. When a Camby can look at, it can say a few words, swing his hand like this, and have all of your stone, bedrock, asphalt, concrete, have it all liquefy. Okay, and when they do that, understand it is going to take, when they do that, it is going to take a whole lot of people with it. Now, I gotta ask Storm, actually, I should probably ask that after. The question that keeps coming to mind is when I head out for intermission, because I gotta go get coffee or what have you, I no longer hear it on my end, hear the song on my end. Which is a little confusing. Now, something we gotta remember here. When you're dealing with the ancient races, when they decide they're coming to the surface, they are not coming, they will not come up and knock on your door. If they were going to invade, they have the capacity to literally, they can literally immobilize an entire, several block area in spider web. No, these guys are not spiders. No, they don't spin web, but they do know how to create it out of thin air, essentially. One of the neat little parts that we have to take a look at. Okay, one of the really neat little things that we really have to look at is so many people. Interesting. Is so many people are focused on how is our world going to end. When we take a look at what the ancient races are up to, they're asking, how are we going to live? What can we do to make our life better without drawing a massive problem? Okay, now here's the thing. Humans, if they get out of their own way, have access to 0 point energy. Okay, where they can literally alter the fabric of space and of space. Time, sorry guys, you're stuck with it. Okay, but see, Einstein a long time ago turned around and made a comment. Okay, and what he basically said, he tried explaining reality. Okay, and what he said was 1 + 1 = 3. This is not mathematics. Now, with the Alpha races, they desire to take over an area. Number one, at this point, they will absolutely connect with other Alpha. Matter of fact, if we were dealing with the Camby, okay, if the Camby are the ones we're referring to, then we are looking at a group of people that can literally wipe out a city in a matter of hours. I'm talking a city of 100,000 people because they're dead silent. As a matter of fact, let me just pull up something here. Okay. Now, I love the Jerumi. Now, the Jerumi are a race that live on the plains. Okay. But living on the plains is also makes them extremely fleet and very agile. Now, what they are trying to do now is figure out how all of them can live back in the same area because they were torn about by other adult elephants. This is why I say when we're looking at these, now we have you've got human soldiers and you've got emergency, mass units or medical units. Well, the elephant, the calder, okay, both of these have medical peoples, okay, by their own definition. It gets really trippy when you realize that some of the other races down there, not the least of which are the Naga. Okay, the Naga and a lot of the Teklik have still stayed hidden. It's been the Kamalians and the Srazazians that have stepped up to the plate and come out in the open and gone, look guys, okay, you're worried about an invasion. Absolutely a real possibility, but not a likely one given the side effects. Okay, when you're looking at the elephant, they will look at your world, at the surface world, and go, either we don't want it, or you made the mess, you clean it up. Okay, and this is just one of the realities behind it. We are looking at a time when mankind is going to do one of two things. You're either going to start working together, and this is one of the things I'm looking at. How do I get this across? Because I'll tell you, the number of people that I catch going, oh, I'm a specialist in the UFO field, in the racist field, and these guys are talking about invasion. Now, pray I'm wrong, but I've never had a conversation with a single elephant that was seriously, we're gearing up to come to war. Okay, humans almost seem to thrive on war. Now, I hope it's different, but I'm just going to check something because of the fact that it's a piece of information I want to make sure of. Let me see here. If we go pop that. Now, here's the thing. I don't know if this is going to... Oh, okay. Now, I just pumped up something. This will give you an idea. Okay. When we are talking about war, okay, about the likelihood, the reality of the threat from below. Okay. And this I just called up on the internet. Okay. Out since 1776. The USA has, according to the internet, because I just Googled it, according to the internet, so check your own facts, okay, has been at war 222 out of 239 years. Okay, with this in mind, you'd think they had something sorted around. And yet, you got to remember, when you're taking a look at the Elfid race or the Dwarvish race, they have been at war for for thousands of years. Okay, with very long periods of peace. Okay, but their knowledge of war is way more advanced. And in all fairness, they don't have a problem targeting so-called safe areas. For them, war is war. Okay, when you bring in some of the other races, not the least of which are some of the shall we say, the more aggressive, some of the reptilian races that are down there, some of the insectivorous races, they do not have a compunction about taking out entire communities. Okay, now I am not saying mankind is going to go to war. Mankind is likely to create its own problem that results in war for them, but is not directly tied to the off-land, to the ancient races. And remember, if you got a race, like for instance, take a look at the Gaddafi. Okay, these people literally live for war. Okay, now most humans I've talked to, even the ones that are highly aggressive, seem to have an aversion to all out war. Although we do seem to see it happen quite regularly where they get caught in it. Okay, and this is why it is so critical that we realize all out war from the ancient races. First and foremost, we have people with a lot more experience. Secondly, we have an even bigger problem with the elementals and the animals. The flora and fauna are all equally ready to defend themselves. This is where people are running into a problem. Wow. Now, one of the other things we got to look at is, why would the people under the earth come to the surface to pick a fight when mankind is so intent on fighting itself? Okay, now I realize the majority of people, the majority of you out there, especially when I'm talking to the people in the States. Okay, now understand, I'm up in Canada, but like I heard all these horror stories about how bad I was going to be treated when I came down to the States. I was absolutely, and I do mean really pleasantly stunned to find how much help I got from you guys, because I get lost really easy. Okay, I really do. But there were so many people that were reaching out to help to make sure I knew what was going on. We have to realize the people in inner Earth. Number one, they've got enough area of their own. They don't require expanding into the surface. Most of them at this point have never seen the surface, and therefore, why not stay down here where it is climate controlled, very, it's nice and moist. Yes, it's dark, but there are ways to compensate for that. Let's get back to this, shall we? Oh, there we go. I think I missed that. Yep, I did a little bit ago. Okay. What we're looking at, when you start thinking in terms of war, understand, when you think in terms of invasion, of the ancient races coming to take over. One of the things you gotta remember, many of the races down there, okay, happen to be carnivorous. They won't, it's not like they have to bring their food with them. Humans have a tendency of having to create long support chains, long support caravans. The ancient races. Now, yes, elephants tend to stick to a more vegetarian diet. Okay, so they only eat the vegetables. But when you look at the Moldocs, okay, the Moldocs, Liborians, and these are people. All of them are not from off world. Well, a lot of these are from off world, but because they are either trapped here or decided they were staying, some of these races you'll know are from off world. The Ilarian, for instance, you call them werewolves. Okay, they're not actually werewolves, but they are very dangerous. But they are carnivore, which is why if they go in to take a city out, they're taking the bodies with them. Not for slavery. Okay? They're taking them for fillet. Probably sounds really bad, but we are looking at an interesting situation where people are where war or invasion is just not one of the things they worry about. Okay, first and foremost, some of the other races are now starting to create a way to get to other planets. Okay, not the least of which is the planet that I was talking to you about the other day with these guys. Okay, and I do have to look up, I've got it somewhere, but this little race here, you'll notice 4 arms. But you gotta remember, humans can use either arm independently. These guys have 4 they can do it with. And you gotta remember, they've got no compunction about killing somebody to get what they're after. Fortunately, the human race, on the whole, or the human species, on the whole, although they were created for war, something happened along the way, and in overwhelming odds, mankind no longer looks for war. Okay, I know the reality is amongst themselves, they certainly do. But you got to remember, with all the rules that mankind has put in place on war, okay, they have bottlenecked themselves so they can't go to it very well. This is a good thing. Do not get me wrong. I do not believe that war has ever created a sense of peace. Ever. You know, war has brought quiet, but not peace. You know, and now what we're looking at is an opportunity to really take a look at the way our world is and go, okay, let's talk to the people that have seen the real horrors. Let's talk to the people that have perpetrated horrors that make man's efforts at war seem rather paltry. Okay, it is time to start looking at the cost of war. The ancient races, on the whole, yes, they've got conflicts, but they have a unified approach. Okay, and I do mean amongst the individual races. I don't mean amongst the species. Because I will tell you, when you take a look at some of these guys, you know, when you think, now the Hadar, they're just off on their own. But when you take a look at the Kambi versus the Kankari, this is a battle you don't want to be in the middle of. Okay, because the Kambi are conquest oriented, and the Kankari, they are literally interested in survival. Okay, But what they do is they will control the very earth upon which the Cambi have to walk. Okay? And when you start doing that, you all of a sudden have a war that gets really out of hand. But this is why I say, if they were to ever mobilize, the first thing you'll find is if the ancient races were to mobilize, they would they would join together. Your Kaldar would kind of start dropping cities. And I don't mean buildings. I mean city-sized sinkholes. They'd start there. Okay. The Kami would start with setting off fireballs on the surface. And yes, I mean literally hocus pocus, boom. Okay. Then you've got some of the other races that are simply feeders. Okay. Picture, if you will, and I don't know what it's called. I think it's called a clutch of reptiles. Okay. Think of what would happen if you had 30-foot reptiles with armor plating all of a sudden descend on your town, okay, and start going after the individuals. This is why I say, if they wanted to do it, it would have already been done. Okay, and of course, here's the other neat little kicker. You start dealing with these guys because they work together and they will join forces. Humans have an interesting problem. They will shoot at things and go, "Are you friendly?" I'm thinking this is a bad idea. Okay, but the the ancient races underground are quite happy to sit there and go, "We don't require that kind of a conflict." Yes, it's time we come back, but not yet. And I don't feel that en masse that you're going to see the Elephant arise, or the or the Calder, or for that matter, any of the other ancient races. I don't feel they're ready to come back, but that's because mankind has not evolved enough to share. And yeah, I know that sounds absolutely terrible. Unfortunately, it's also very real. Okay, one of the things we've got to realize is the more you get to know who your neighbors are, what their likes, dislikes, strengths, weaknesses, even their heritage, get to know each other. This will cut down on the odds of having a bigger problem. Okay, but we have to realize that an actual all-out war, when you're dealing with races that can liquefy the very ground you're standing on, you can bet your bottom dollar a war with them would not work out well for humans. Yes, the elephant will take humans in. This is how we end up with with half breeds. Virtually every elephant race will. The one thing you gotta remember is don't just go, "I really desire to have an abduction. I really desire to meet these guys." Cambi are not ones that you really desire to meet on the whole. Because the Cambi are quite happy working with slavery. Of course, understand they are on Earth. Okay, they are not members of the consortium either, because they don't have a unified society. Now, yes, there have been races that are completely unified, are not the leading race on a planet, but because they are totally unified and have made this clear, okay, there are some races that have become members and or simply either members of the consortium or simply honorary members, as in they know they've got to follow consortium law, and they will, by signing those treaties, they will absolutely turn around. Okay. They will absolutely turn around in order to maintain a level of protection in case things go sideways. You know, that's the thing we have to realize is so many people are looking at the reality of it and going, but what if they attack? Well, I'm telling you, given that they have the capacity as individuals, I'm talking about the better trained ones, of immobilizing everybody in a multi-block radius. They can take people out of the equation, and you can bet, due to the fact that some of them are militarily oriented, they will target the military bases first. Okay, that's where the first targets will be. But in the case of the ancient races, they will attack through the floorboards and wipe out wholesale without asking, are you on our side? Okay, it is possible to live that kind of assault, but the catch is to make certain you let them know very vocally right away. Most of them will let you live, if you understand what I'm getting at. One of the things we have to realize is this is not a question of can man defend itself. Man is great at defending itself, I'll use that term loosely, okay, against humans, but they are not good at protecting themselves against unknown factors. You know, when you got people that can literally walk through the walls and come up behind your human troops, the humans don't have a whole lot of options. They don't have a real chance. Okay, that's one of the biggest things we have to look at here. Okay, the other neat little part about it is the ancient races, especially when we take a look at some of the at some of the smaller ones, like the Burundi. Okay, the Burundi are not interested in war. They are capable of it, but they don't have an interest. And the reason for that is because it doesn't do them any good. Let's face it, the Burundi thrive on collecting trinkets and what have you from humans. So, if the humans all die, where do the Burundi get their toys? Okay, this is one of the questions you have to look at. Because we're looking at a group of people, and I'm talking the overall picture. When you're looking at Calder, the Elephant, the Minotaurs, the Alarians, and there are so many more. Okay, not the least of which are your Anunnaki. Okay, Anunnaki, and we're only talking a sparse few of the Anunnaki. And we have just hit that neat little point of 5 minutes. So just a heads up, guys. I will not be back tomorrow because tomorrow we are having Canadian Thanksgiving dinner. However, that said, what can I move over there? Just want to get this straight before I put my foot in it. On Friday, for those of you that are interested, okay, because I'll be gone tomorrow my apologies. On Tuesday, what the heck are we doing? Let me pick that up again. On Tuesday, what do we got? Whoop. Wednesday, there we go. We will move the complications. Tomorrow, okay, English, okay. Monday, we're not going to be here. We are going to jump communications, the complications with non-humans. We're going to jump that all the way to the 19th. Okay, so I don't have to reschedule things. I will make certain that I post what's coming up. Okay, but I've got Thanksgiving tomorrow, so that's how that goes. With that in mind, guys, thank you so very much for sharing your time with us today. Really appreciate it. I will be back on Tuesday. Okay, and on Tuesday, we are going to look at, where are we? Yeah, and on Tuesday, we're going to look at the link between dreams and reality. Well, hang on. Tuesday, we are going to look at. Gee, I should have thought that one through, shouldn't I? Now that I've completely scrambled that, we move the complication with communication to non-humans from tomorrow until Tuesday. Okay, what have we got here? Then, that being said, that will come in tomorrow on Tuesday, 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. PST. Okay, I do look to. Whoops, not a problem, LA. We are moving on. We are on Wednesday, on Tuesday. We are going to be dealing with communication complications with non-humans. Okay, that'll be on Tuesday because tomorrow, which is Monday, we won't be here. Okay, but on Tuesday I'll be back 4:30 p.m. PST until 6:30 p.m. Until then,